It's just such a joy to chat with you and explore these deeper domains of life and looking at the interface of mind, body, biology, and the world out there. But you're helping to us understand the layers of environment inside ourselves. And you spoke about the blood. And I've got to bring some kind of indigenous wisdom and ancient Chinese wisdom to the foreground here because that blood that you're referring to is we get a little pinprick and we give our blood to a lab and get all sorts of information, which is incredible, by the way. Um, but it's also really interesting to look at the magnetic quality of the blood that has been passed on generation to generation, and this is one of the reasons that the ancestors in indigenous civilizations and societies have been so important because it's actually in the blood. The intelligence, the wisdom, the knowledge, information is stored in the blood. So when we talk about, for instance, bloodlines, this is what we're talking about. There's an actual transmission of knowledge, information, and wisdom through the blood. And that's why ancestors are worshipped because they are the holders, the embodiers of wisdom. So I just wanted to lay that out as a beginning for our next section of our talk.
Yeah.
So you could pick up on that motif.
Well, let's start with the conventional belief about evolutionary theory, the
Sure.
Darwinian theory.
Yes.
That is one of the scariest things in the world and totally wrong. Thank you very much.
Please
But
elucidate.
let's say, what was the premise of how evolution worked in Darwinian theory? And the answer is that random mutations, which are definition is random accidents of genetics, can alter the genes. Now, they can alter the genes so that the result is a more powerful organism, or they can alter the genes and take away the power from the organism. So there are good mutations and bad mutations. According to Darwinian theory, that the mutations originate and then nature will determine if the mutation made you stronger or the mutation made you weaker. Okay. That's called natural selection. Nature will select. Okay.
Yes.
But I say, what's the premise of it? And I say, well, the premise is it's an accident. What do you mean? I go, how come we're here? I go, whole bunch of genetic accidents. I go, so what's the reason for being here? There's no reason for being here. It's just a whole bunch of genetic accidents, and here we are. How wonderful, we won. And I go, okay, is
Lottery.
that true? And the truth is, no. Evolution is not caused by random accidents. Evolution is an adaptation mechanism to learn to adapt to an environment. So
Mhm.
that by definition means that you as an organism and the environment are communicating with each other to keep you alive. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, if I tell you it's only because of your genes, then you go, well, I have no purpose. I'm just here. What do you know? I might well enjoy it or something like that. Dust to dust, genes to ashes, whatever. And I go, so why is this relevant? And I go, because we didn't get here by accident. We got here by an intention. I go, whose intention? Nature's intention. I go, what do you mean? A garden is a cooperative community. A garden is harmony among all the elements in a garden.
Yep.
But sometimes one element starts to overgrow itself, and then it has to be cut back by a new organism that will come in and settle the score and bring it back. But then the new organism can offset it. Then another new organism comes in. And I say, so what was the result? Every organism added to nature was brought in to create more harmony and balance by keeping it in balance. And I go, and we are the highest level of organism in influencing that balance. But since we have no conscious awareness that, well, over 10,000 years ago, they did, that
Yes.
we live in a garden.
That we
And
are an ecosystem.
10,000 years ago, the people said, we're gardeners. We're here to be part of the garden, take care of it. We lost that. And all of a sudden it says, well, then what? Now we're trampling the garden. We're destroying it. We're uprooting it. We're taking all the stuff out. We're polluting air, water, ground. We're doing this. And I go, what's the point? And I said, we didn't get here by accident, folks. We got here by nature's intention. And we are now the trouble that nature is experiencing. It's us. And nature's intention is to keep the garden. So what does that mean? Well, then humans are not necessarily in the garden anymore because they're screwing the garden up. So we're facing an extinction process here. And the reality is we have to go back to the original understanding. We are in a garden, and to survive and to thrive in a garden, you work in harmony with all the organisms in the planet, with each other and all the other organisms. Well, I don't want to tell you, but you already know there's a hell of a lack of harmony everywhere in this thing now. And that disharmony is the cause of disease. Disharmony, disease, harmony, health. And we're killing ourselves because our belief system has said, oh, you are separate from nature. I said, when did we get that? I go, well, the Bible said first nature was created, then we added you as options. Human options were added to the garden. So you didn't have any connection with the
Chinese
garden. You just
menu.
showed up.
It's like a column A and column B on a Chinese menu. Yo, add a human or two, you know. So what's
And that
interesting
was
about
religion's point of view in the Bible, but science didn't make it any better because science then said, well, you got here because of accident, which then is the same thing saying, oh, there was no reason, we just got here. I go, in both those cases, the disconnection from nature has resulted in a destruction of the web of life. Is it real? NASA scientists have claimed in 20 years, industrial civilization, the one we're in, is facing an irreversible collapse because of the lack of harmony and living in the world. And the point is, well, we're the ones that are doing this. And if we want to survive, we change consciousness. And this is what the evolution that we're facing right now. We're not going to grow extra arms and legs and things like that. Evolution is we're going to change from being the destroyer of the garden
yes,
into being the maintenance of the garden. And
this
that will all survive here. And this is what nature is saying. You're not in harmony, folks, and we don't need you. Like when Chernobyl blew up and they had the zone of exclusion, so many hundreds of miles where people couldn't go because the radioactivity level was high.
yeah.
Guess what? People not going there, the woods have grown, the gardens have grown, the animals. There are more animals in Chernobyl than in former Soviet Union. And the forest is growing out of the buildings in the city. Their trees are growing out the windows and everything. The nature has taken over. Everywhere where humans are being prohibited, like certain areas, like in New Zealand, you cannot fish in this area. No humans can fish here. The fish have returned back to natural populations as they were before. And the point about it is what? Humans are going to go, but nature is hanging on.
Oh God, yeah. I've said a million times, stop saving the planet. Save yourself. You don't have to worry about Mother Earth. You know, she knows
Mother
what
Earth.
she's doing, you know? There's an
That's it.
interest.
When humans are out of the way, and even when COVID was happening, and in just that
I know.
short period where
Remember what
humans
happened
stopped
in India and China?
interfering,
Yeah.
nature started to show up. People say, "Oh, look, the animals are here." It's like, yeah,
Air cleaned up like mad in major cities in India and China, if you recall. It was like at LA as well, you know?
yeah.
There's an
So,
interesting parallel that is showing up, Bruce, in this conversation, which I realize is just as our relationship is to nature, that we have lost our footing in being part of a harmonious ecosystem with Gaia, Pachamama, which is a literal intelligence that people do not accord to nature because we've been so materialized. We have been trained, programmed to think about nature as a place of resources for making money: gold, platinum, iron. Do I have to say more? And so too, there's that aspect of how we are out of sync with nature. So too, that when the mind was removed from the body through Descartes and his other followers,
and Newton. Let me just add
and
Newton.
all
because
right.
Newtonian physics is based on two realms, matter and energy,
That's
and
true.
that they don't communicate with each other. So once Newtonian physics was accepted, the concept of mind,
Yeah.
energy, became metaphysics, and
Yeah.
body became physics.
Physics.
And
That's
that separated the mind and said, no, your mind has nothing to do with this, when that's 100% false.
and Descartes, you're right. You're right. And Descartes just furthered that program. And that's what we have today. And because there's a powerful profit motive in all of that we're saying for the big pharma, therefore it's really hard for people like you and I and others of our ilk to promote the idea of mind over and with matter.
Well, the people that know this don't want you to know this. That's how they got power. They know
Exactly.
it. Look, there's a book, all of a sudden I forgot the name of the author, called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You know the author.
Oh yeah, sure. The Yeah, of
Let
course.
me just say, what was the point of the story? If you grew up in a poor family, you'll have a tendency to stay poor your whole life. And if you grow up in a rich family, you'll have a tendency to stay rich your whole life. I said, what is it? Genetics? I go, it had nothing to do with genetics, it had to do with programming. Poor people feel they're victims. And as a result, they program themselves and their offspring to recognize their powerless point in nature. And rich people have all, oh no, this is how we make all the money, and this is how you manipulate, and this, all that. And they're the ones that continue making money. And the poor people, I go, did God do that? I said, no. I said, programming did that. And I go, we've been programmed to be victims. And then you give up your power to those that you believe are the ones that are going to save you. And I go, that's a manipulation, folks. That's
Right.
the game. I want to go back to the Matrix for a minute because,
Sure,
as
sure.
I said, the Matrix is a documentary. Everybody got programmed, right? But here's the part that's interesting, because a lot of you are going to respond to this, and I go, but the movie also had something called taking the red pill. I go, what does that mean? I say, well, you get out of the program. I go, guess what? Almost all of you have taken that red pill at least once in your life, and it had profound consequences. I go, what was it? When you fall in love, you
Yes.
stop thinking, which means you stop playing the program. And that is the first time that the conscious mind takes over the control over 90% instead of being 5%. And I say, yeah, but the conscious mind is a creative mind. I go, yeah, and what do you think you did when you fell in love? You created heaven on earth. That's not an accident. That was a creation by you. I say, how did it happen? You fell in love, you stop thinking, and then no longer did the program take over, because now you are not thinking, you're in charge. Now the honeymoon disappears because at some point you start thinking, and then all that bad programming starts to show up in the relationship that was never there.
I
In the
think I
honeymoon,
hear
you never played those negative things because
there's
those
a
were
book
programs.
underneath this, Bruce. I think you should write called The Honeymoon Effect.
That's a good book.
What do you say?
Let's manifest it. Boom. Okay, we did it. Yay.
What's beautiful here is that, of course, the premise of that book, which we did an interview on when it first came out, um, is that we are the creators of heaven on earth or hell on earth, depending on how we perceive and what program we're ready and willing to operate out of. And to the extent, going back to what we were talking about before and related to the matrix, is of stepping out of the box. So when we step out of the box, we can see the programming that we received even in childhood, and we go, oh, that's why I think the way I think. And that's why my life is going the way it's going.
That's why I struggle, because I've been playing programs that were sabotaging, being unaware, totally
Exactly.
unaware that I'm even playing those programs.
That's
You
right.
know, and probably on the first time we ever had an interview, I told this story because it's the same story for 40 years.
Yeah.
Is you have a friend, you know your friend's behavior very well, and you happen to know your friend's parent. One day you see your friend has the exact same behavior as the parent. You volunteer. I love it. You say, Hey, Bill, you're just like your dad.
Guess what?
Back away from Bill because you already know Bill. I know what he's going to say. You already heard what he's going to say. How could you compare me to my dad? I'm nothing like my dad. And it's funny because everybody else sees that Bill behaves like his dad because he's playing the programs he downloaded. Bill's the only one who doesn't see it because he's playing the program because he's not paying attention. But all Bill does see is the reaction. And I say, what's that? Well, people have interfered with my life. This person, I'm a victim. This person did this and that person did that. And I'm a victim. I'm a victim. And the reality was, no, you were the creator. Huh? Yeah.
Moi?
Subconscious programming running your life 95% of the day, and you don't see it. And so the red pill is an opportunity to say, what would happen if I don't play the program? And the answer is, oh, well, then 24 hours, the blah, blah, blah life after you meet somebody, 24 hours later, it's like, oh, life is so beautiful. Life is so heaven on earth. I go, 24 hours? What the hell different? You stop playing the program.
Yep.
And the moment you stop playing the program, your conscious mind connected to your spirit
Uh-huh.
became the full creator of that life experience for that time period until you started thinking again. And then all of a sudden, the old BS belief system
Yes.
programs,
Right.
BS, the old BS starts playing and starts to sabotage you again. I say, you created heaven on earth. I said, that's always there. Why don't you have it every day? And his answer is, because every day you're playing programs 95% of the time. You're not even creating it. You are being programmed. You have been. Uh-oh, the matrix. There you are.
There we are. I'm going to go back because I love finding historical antecedents to the wisdom that is, flourishing right here and sometimes even flourishes in science. And that is, as I'm listening to you speak, I'm reflecting, Bruce, on an ancient idea from Vedic intelligence, going back to ancient India, of Maya, which means, of course, illusion. And so everything that you are attributing to this idea of our programming, think matrix, is something that they knew all along and spoke about in this way. They weren't scientific in the way we are today. They were scientific, by the way, in the way they were. And by the way, Vedic mathematics is one of the most advanced form of mathematics on the planet. So just to say that, but
A little sidebar,
yeah,
that quantum physics, the most valid, powerful science on this planet,
yes,
is populated by lots of Hindus because of the ancient Vedic
mathematicians, yeah,
understanding is the foundation of quantum physics. So they were living it in a consciousness without the scientific technology terminology that we have
language,
today. They
right?
were expressing the same thing back then in their vocabulary and their action. But that's why so many Indians are part of the field of quantum physics.
That is so interesting. Exactly. That makes perfect sense relative to what it is I'm saying, because this notion of a program, this notion of our relationship to our bodies and to the universe all simultaneous. One word that you taught me way back in the early 90s was fractal consciousness. And that was the name of our first interview. And
Yeah.
I made a, well, oh my God, I made a VCR, a VHS tape out of.
Yeah, it's probably in some museum of nowhere.
It got very popular, my friend. Let me tell you. But but I want to bring to bear in this conversation the role of illusion. And when people start to break out of illusion, they start seeing the world for more of what it really is. And I want to bring another idea forward, which is this idea of awakefulness and they use the word wokeness, which I
Ah,
don't do it. There's a whole other thing. But becoming awake is different than woke.
Yes.
Crazy as that sounds. But when somebody begins to awaken to the layers of their consciousness, if you will, sort of the way we're talking about of stepping out of the box and looking in and seeing the program we received, a la Matrix, it's like it's like we shedding weight. We're shedding disbelief and mistakes and errors in understanding. So, would you comment on that?
Yeah, I could tell you because let me give you a personal experience about losing weight in this regard.
Yes.
That was the night that I was, intuition came in, the
Yeah.
universe fed me, and I understood that moment that the cell membrane is a information processor. It's a organic chip, and
Yeah.
the nucleus is a hard drive with programs in it. And then I recognized, but I said, wait a minute, no two people are the same. I said, what does that mean? I said, because I can't put my cells into your body and you can't put your cells into my body because our immune systems will recognize not self. Led me to where is the self? And then I mentioned the fact that we have antennas
Yes.
on the surface of the cell.
Sure.
And at that moment, as I mentioned earlier, was the mentioning, I said, wait a minute, I can't die. It was like all of a sudden the weight of the world lifted off. And
Oh,
I'll tell you why, because ever since we were kids, the fear of death. The humans are the only organism that know they're going to die. So that's a problem right there.
yes.
And I go, because the fear of death becomes primordial in behavioral control. If
Mhm.
something is threatening you, you will immediately start to take a position of protection at that moment. And that's to protect our lives. So we have this feeling like, yeah, my life is here and then it could die and then I'm disappeared. But when that moment I saw that, oh, my identity was the broadcast and the television goes, but the broadcast is still there, the moment of I can't die, all of a sudden, a weight that I didn't know I was carrying lifted. And it's the fear of death, which is in everybody's mind because we know we're going to die. We just don't want it to be now. And the point about it is, what if you absolutely lost the fear of death? Well, that's exactly what happened through the science for me. Was it devotional? I will not die. No, it was like there's a mechanism, there's an energy field that's like, oh, this. I said, oh my God, I lost the fear of death and the weight of that which you don't know you're carrying until it's gone. All of a sudden, I felt, oh,
Oh,
a freedom I never experienced before because that fear completely disappeared. It's like, I don't, dying, I'm not afraid of. I don't want pain, but dying is like, if I don't wake up, I didn't wake up, but I'm still around.
yeah.
And,
You're here, you're there.
and this is what people need to know because they talk spirituality, but I don't believe they fully own spirituality. It's a word you use on Sunday, and on
Yes,
Monday is probably gone by then.
that is a very powerful point. Overall, yeah. No, this is so potent because this, if you will, cuts to the quick of
Yes.
our lives and our subconscious and what it is we are harboring, all of us, inside on a deep core level is fear of death, of our own end. And that is too much for ordinary consciousness to comprehend. But when one has an experience, as you're discussing, and interestingly, in scientific vernacular and analog, you go, my God, this is true. I truly am an immortalist. There's a part of me that really does not die.
No, and I want to bring this up because Nature, the journal Nature, is the most prestigious scientific journal on the planet.
Sure.
I use in my lectures an article by a professor of physics, Richard Kahn Henry, and
Mhm.
it was a physics article called The Mental Universe, which emphasized the fact that quantum physics recognized that matter is an illusion, it's energy, okay?
Anyway, right.
Yeah, and I like it because there's a quote that Einstein, which I use in the lecture when I bring this up, and the quote from Einstein is, "Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a persistent one." That is an illusion. Okay,
That is good.
so yeah, and this whole idea of this energy phase and who and what we are is fundamental to disconnect from the fear. The fear is what controls you, and you don't have the fear, it all disappears. Did I, how long was my devotional period from not believing in spirit till believing in spirit? Well, read the line that I was going to tell you about in the journal Nature by Richard Conn Henry. The last line in an article on quantum physics. You ready? The universe is immaterial. Well, that means it's made out of energy, so it's not made out of matter.
Yes.
The universe is immaterial. It's mental and spiritual. Live and enjoy. This is the concluding sentence in the Nature, most prestigious scientific journal. That is the concluding sentence in that article. And I said, holy crap, physics, quantum physics, which came from a lot of that Hindi
Yeah.
understanding,
Right.
has brought forward the reality of spirituality as a factor in controlling our lives, not as a metaphysical concept, but as a quantum physical concept that spirit exists. And I was already there because I already saw the mechanism of how it connects. It connects via those receptors. And the fact was, so how long did it take me to go from non-spiritual? How many years and months of devotion? I say about 10 seconds, maybe. That was about it. Why? Because it wasn't there. Then it was a scientific fact. And then it's there. Whoa. And that's, it's like, I was the one that was blown away. Not
Sure.
only did that weight of death disappear, but when this came in, the whole thing, the whole picture made understanding of life, the whole thing was like when, what's that movie where the yellow brick road,
Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz, when they pull the curtain aside and they see the guy with all the switches and all that stuff. It's like at that moment, nature pulled the
Yeah.
curtain aside, and I saw all the switches of environmental signals and things and genes and blah blah, and it's like, oh. And the reality was, it was a complete moment of transformation because I'm not just saying, hey, spirit's a nice word. You want to come on church on Sunday? We can talk about some spirit. I go, no, spirit is physics. Spirit is reality. If you own this, you'll start to recognize you are a creator. Your spirit is a piece of God, meaning all of us have our own spirits. I go, yeah, but put all of the spirits together and they represent all that is God. And I say this all of a sudden becomes so important because it takes us away from the mundane stuff that we're doing here right now.
Sure
It puts
does.
you on another level and says, wait a minute, I'm a piece of God. What? You're a creator. That's where your peace comes from. And I love it because how do people make money off of you? By taking away your power as a creator and giving you the concept of being a victim, and they're the ones that are going to rescue you. But what if you really own the fact that you are a piece of God? And I go, guess what? Then I don't need anybody to tell me how to connect with God. I could never be disconnected from God. You're always connected. There's no way that that could not be happening. And yet they sell you on the idea that God is separate from you and they can tell you how to get to that guy and how much it's going to cost. When the fact is, you already are a piece of God. You've just been programmed to create hell on earth rather than heaven on earth because then you're out of power. And
There is
that's
no
God lost its
separation.
power. God lost the power through education that was misperception.
Correct. You speak about the Jesuits, you speak about, your experience that you just outlined again so beautifully was when you were in medical school, as I recall,
Yes.
teaching in the Caribbean.
I love that.
Me too. And that's why you have seared it into my subconscious just how profound that moment was of what I would like to call your enlightenment. Because
You know what I also call it? My heart orgasm. Like, what do you mean? I go, up to that number of years in my life,
uh-huh,
nearly 40, my whole life was generated
I
by the
know.
activity of this brain.
From the neck up.
Yep, no sensation down. I'm just a walking robot doing the research, blah, blah, blah. The moment this reality happened, it didn't hit here, it hit here.
Yes.
All of a sudden, I had tears in my eyes, like an ache, not a pain, an ache of love.
Right?
And I
Right.
was like, it was a
Like
moment of
heart
total
space.
transformation.
Yeah. Your chakra opened and it was receiving and giving information, if you will, to stay within that scientific paradigm at the same time. And you've been that way ever since. As reality, I can attest to it. I've known you that long, you know?
Well, and the truth is, and when I wrote the Honeymoon Effect book about it, because I couldn't get a relationship off the ground for nearly 40 plus years, nearly 50. I say,
Wow.
why not? I say, well, look, 95% of my life is coming from the program. I go, yeah, and where'd you get my programs? Oh, I got my programs by watching my father and my mother and the community. And I said, oh, hey, guess what? My father had a totally dysfunctional relationship with my mother. What do you think I downloaded?
Exactly.
And I downloaded Dysfunctional Relationship, and I couldn't get one off the ground for over nearly 50 years until I recognized, oh my God, that's a program.
Isn't
And I
that?
could rewrite that program.
Yeah.
And then I met my partner, Margaret. And the true story is 28 years, every, I love it, I always say it, every stinking day,
Every lovely
I
day.
have a life in heaven. My life is no matter how crazy it is around, I'm
Uh-huh.
not in the crazy. We had once mentioned the fact about a hurricane where the storms are blowing and
Right.
creating all that havoc. I say, but in the dead center of the hurricane is called the eye of the hurricane. But guess what? There are no winds. There's not even any clouds. Well,
Peace.
all around you, the world is being broken by the forces of a hurricane. If you're in the eye of the hurricane, the sun is out and it's beautiful.
Exactly. Bruce Lipton, we are winding down, believe it or not, after a
Oh my God, we ran through that 40 minutes.
dialogue. Wow,
Wow.
they just don't know how to count. You know? But you have brought such revelation, thoughtfulness, and insight into our world, our better world, and our audience is deeply grateful for
I'm
all.
deep. Let me give my deeply grateful for a moment. I'm deeply grateful for you, Mitchell, because all these years you have dedicated your life to awakening a population. This is one of the most important jobs in humanity, and that is to awaken people out of the dream of victim and empower their lives. And you are a humanitarian because that's what humanitarians do. They hope and help humanity. And I want to say how much our years have been together and how our discussions have also enhanced our collective reality, you and me together.
Yes,
And then bringing this to the public and all you people out there, I thank God you're out there
all of you.
because you are people that are thinking enough to say, there's some information missing here, and can I seek it and get it? And then go back to, hey, thanks, Mitch, for helping people get information.
God bless Bruce. You're a dear friend. I feel blessed that we have had our relationship that we have. And guess what? We're going to be bringing Bruce Lipton to New York City.
New York
August,
City.
the Big Apple. We're going to take a bite out of it together. And August 3rd. So contact us at A Better World, MJ
Oh,
at abetterworld.net, and we'll make sure you can get a ticket if you're soon enough to respond. So
oh my goodness, that's Christmas
wonderful.
for me to come and give a presentation.
Exactly. You've been away from New York for too long, Brucey, and now it's time for you to come back.
I'll come
You're
back. I hope somebody's there with you and me.
Don't worry, everything will go well. Everything will go well. So thank you again for being on again today and speaking to our audience, and with all of your good cheer and goodwill and beautiful intelligence. It's very uplifting, out of the matrix. So on that note,
Thank you, Mitchell. I so deeply appreciate you in my life. And again, I always have to come back and honor our audience, because the future of our planet is not based on us as individuals, it's based on us as a community.
exactly. Think community. Got it. So thanks all for coming and listening today and enjoying Bruce and my dialogue. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.